Florida, where the undefeated Baltimore Ravens are taking on the winless Jacksonville Jaguars. I'll be on the scene. Luke will be monitoring all things from back here in Baltimore and the homestead as he once again trudges to Oriole Park at Camden Yards. I'd love to tell you this segment will be more about football, but it won't. It will have some football in it. But it's all baseball. The Red Sox bringing out the brooms, an ugly week in the stands, an ugly week on the field, an ugly week for the pitching rotation, and this is almost going to be an infamous one, right? This is one we're going to talk about if this team does not make the playoffs in 10 days. And conversely, if they do make the playoffs in 10 days and go on to win the World Series, it will be the turning point.
Yeah, that's you pretty much covered it right there. I mean,
I've written this book. See, I've been doing this for 32 years, Luke. It's crazy, isn't it?
And it's funny you mention that. And look, I'm not saying I expect this to happen remotely, but I couldn't help but think of the Ravens losing 4 of their last 5 in 2012, and everyone thought they were dead, let alone making a run to win the Super Bowl. And I don't think the Orioles are built to do that. I didn't think they were built to win a World Series prior to this homestand, quite frankly, but
I didn't think they were on opening day. We thought they would just hit a lot of home runs and be a 500 team, kind of, sort of, right?
Yeah, but it's not even so much about that. I mean, I just look at where this team is right now, and they feel broken right now. And I think you look at this from a number of levels. I mean, we've talked about the offense. Certainly the starting pitching, even though it's been better in the second half than it was in the first half, still not very good. Certainly was not good at all in this series. Chris Tillman, the guy that they had leaned on all year to be a stopper for them. I mean, he was, prior to the shoulder issue in August, he had been the guy that typically took the hill and got it done when they needed a win to kind of reverse, whether it was a brief losing streak or a stretch where they weren't playing particularly well, he would rise to the occasion. So he ends up with his shortest outing of the year on Thursday night. Now, the bats, again, not swinging. But, it goes beyond that. This team now, despite the fact that they had the best home record in the majors roughly a month ago, they've lost 15 of their last 23 at Camden Yards. I mean, that's not good. That's really, really...
That's Colorado Rockies action. That's San Diego Padres. That's what bad teams do.
Right. And then we've talked about this. We talked about this a bit with what happened Tuesday night with Buck Showalter, the decision to stick with Kevin Gausman against David Ortiz as opposed to going to Donnie Hard. I question the pitch selection, a 1-2 fastball that kind of leaked back over the outer half of the plate instead of trying to bury a splitter ahead in the count.
Well, let's be honest. This is a lineup where, you make mistakes. Boy, these are the guys that make you pay for it, right? You make mistakes against the Orioles, and they swing and miss. They guess wrong.
Recently, yeah. I mean, especially, and far too often in the second half of the season. But just the little things. I mentioned Tuesday, Wednesday. Chris Davis makes the error that he hasn't made all year long. He always makes that play at first. Give a firm underhand flip to Brad Brock covering, and you're out of the inning, and you're still winning.
You're in the dugout getting a glass of water, right?
Yeah, and then Brock, who even acknowledged after the game, kind of was frustrated and made a terrible pitch, and a 2-1 deficit turned into 5-1 on Thursday night. It was Trey Mancini hits a 3-run homer to get them tied again in the bottom of the third, and you're thinking, okay, maybe that's the spark that they need, not just for the rest of tonight's game, but moving forward the rest of this homestand, and everyone kind of gets everyone takes a deep breath and say, hey, if this rookie can do it, we can do it. But then what proceeded to happen, the 2 runs that Boston scored to go ahead in the 5th inning, a leadoff walk from Vance Worley, but later on in the inning, a wild pitch that Caleb Joseph flat out admitted after the game he should have blocked. It went right through his wickets. And I'm a Caleb Joseph guy, Nestor. It has just been a nightmare disaster of a season for him. It's just...
coming off of the coming out party, right? Yeah. Literally. I mean, where he looked and played all the part of the big leaguer that they were going to entrust a job to, minus $17 million that they gave, or $16 million, or whatever it was they gave Wieters before the year began. But, and Wieters... Look, I don't know that if Wieters wouldn't have walked, what it would have looked like, but it probably would have looked a lot different than this.
Yeah. He hasn't played regularly. I think that's factored in. But regardless, he still has 0 RBIs this late in the 2000s. I mean, it's unthinkable when you're talking about a guy who has over 100 plate appearances to still not have an RBI. But a wild pitch that shouldn't have been a wild pitch, quite frankly. I mean, technically it is because it hit the dirt, but that's the ball he has to block. And that put the go-ahead run in scoring position. It was only the 5th inning, but then Benintendi singles, and Orioles are trailing again. And then in the 7th inning, when it's still a 1-run game, Donnie Hart comes in, makes perfect sense. You have quite a few lefties due up in that 7th inning. The one right-hander that could hurt him, Hanley Ramirez, you pitch around him if you need to, right? I mean, you don't have to intentionally walk him, but you do not throw him anything that can hurt you because you have lefties coming up after him. He had already gotten Ortiz out. Instead, leaves a fastball in the outer half of the plate and up, hits a home run. These are little things, but they become big things. And right now, the way this homestand and specifically this 4-game sweep, the Orioles did not do the big things well, and they didn't do the little things well. And you're going to go through times where you struggle to swing the bat. Certainly, you're going to go through times when you have a starting rotation like the Orioles have had this year. You're going to go through times where they do not perform well whatsoever. But when you're compounding that by not even doing the little things right, you have no chance. And that's kind of where the Orioles were over the course of this series, and pretty remarkable to think first time Boston has completed a 4-game sweep at Camden Yards since September 2002. I don't need to remind you, that was the Orioles' infamous 4-32 finish.
We talked about that one for a few years, as I remember. Yeah, I mean, again, we go through the awful moments in the history of Oriole baseball and the great moments, and all of them are really well chronicled, whether it's Stippy Martinez picking guys off, whether it's Jack Cust falling down, whether it's, giving up Benitez home runs to Tony Fernandez, or whether it's Delman Young doubles. You remember those moments. You remember the night that the Red Sox fell apart here, and we all laughed on their grave and danced around, and we sucked, but at least they weren't going to the playoffs. Sometimes you what do they say? You get the creature, and sometimes the creature gets you. This time, it's sort of all of it. The trading deadline, the offseason, the bats, they're just running out of gas, and they're getting injured, and the pitching's not right, and they weren't built for this anyway. And more than that, this is the thing, Luke, and I'll talk about this over the last 5 years. There's been no buzzsaw team in this division. There's been no Yankees or Red Sox of that early part of the century where you looked at those teams and said, they would have beaten the 73 A's. They would have beaten the 65 Dodgers. They would have competed with the 1950s. Those were incredible baseball teams, chock full of incredible baseball players. There hasn't been a whole lot of that going on in this division. There's been a lot of bloated salary, a lot of Panda and Carl Crawford and Teixeira and, wasted money there. But this Red Sox team is the first. If the season started now and they played 162 like this looks like the kind of team that could win 108 or 110, that could resemble more of the Cubs in this incarnation with a healthy Poppy, and I'm far from believing he could play 300 games. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm just saying the way they're playing baseball right now. And you know who really witnesses this? And I know you don't get it as much being at the games. Jim Palmer has been all over this the last couple nights, which is, this is a really good team, and don't be shocked about a Red Sox-Cubs World Series, because this is what good teams look like at the end, especially if they didn't have their pitching together and they gave a guy $217 million that he's supposed to go out and win games like Thursday night, and he kind of did,
Yeah, and we've talked about this, even in the off season. I mean, as far as where this Red Sox team was heading. You look at these young players, and David Ortiz is having an unbelievable, inexplicable season, quite frankly, as a 40-year-old. But that aside,
wink, wink, nudge, nudge. What's in your milkshake?
Right. As much as I hate that kind of speculation, you kind of have to. It's weird.
Dude, what was weird was giving him that phone.
Yeah. I love that.
No. I just didn't think. And I think he has a sense of humor like all that. I just thought, I watched it on television. My wife wanted to go. She wasn't feeling great on Thursday, so we kind of hung out, which we're prone to do on any given night because that's the way cancer rolls. And we decided to just hang out, and we watched it, and I'm like, Man, Jim Hunter down there like it's opening day,
Yeah.
and so many Red Sox in the stadium that it sounded a little bit like a Fenway Park thing to me.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, it sounded like there was a whole lot more cheering than booing, and it didn't look like the Orioles fans that I know that on my Facebook were going to be the type that were going to cheer Big Papi, who they refer to as Big Sloppy, in all sorts of ways. And I just thought it was awkward. I don't know. I mean, Adam Jones obviously has a relationship with him. And I'm going to be really honest, and I haven't said this much on the radio. Last year on my tour, he was the nicest human being that I encountered anywhere on the tour. Not for a baseball player, not for a Red Sox player. He stood and talked to me like a human being for 10 minutes on the field at the Sky Dome and had incredible joy and humanity about himself, and I will be a fan of Big Papi. I wish that he looked like he was having more fun with it, and I would have felt better. If he didn't look so awkward, I wouldn't have felt so awkward.
Well, I've heard some not so great stories about him over the years as well. Talking to not necessarily Boston media.
I'm just giving you my own experience.
Oh, sure. Oh, absolutely. You're not alone in that. But the reverence that
people hate Kurt Schilling. He's married to one of my best friends.
Sure.
I think he's nuts, and I'd be happy to tell him I think he's nuts because I see his post. But I sent him a text the other night telling him how to make his software better on Facebook. I mean, I love Kurt. I mean, Kurt's like a crazy uncle to me, or crazy cousin. I don't know what to say. But I get everybody's politics. But how do you treat me, and how do you treat people around you? And for me, I'm a Papi guy for a really personal reason that is very warranted, in the same reason that Peter Angelos has treated me and my family like garbage for 20 years, and my wife's had cancer twice, and nobody there seems to give me a swabbing table. So, these are the actions in life that influence how you feel about people. So we almost wanted to buy a ticket. Figure this out. We wanted to give Peter Angelos money to honor David Ortiz.
Yeah. And my take on the actual ceremony and the phone itself, he was asked about it a couple of days, I believe it was Tuesday.
He agreed.
Had a media availability. And he was asked about that, and he laughed. Like, he thought it was funny and all of that. I don't know if he thought that would never happen, as much as I almost wonder, and when they showed the highlight of him destroying the phone 3 years ago.
And the Yankee stuff, it was so Greg Bader-y, like, whose decision? Who in the warehouse? I mean, I'm not saying it's good or bad. You make your own judgment, but it was really weird. I mean, I don't know whether it was tacky, awkward, the Yankee home runs.
The whole thing awkward. Like
Jim Hunter down there. What the WTF? I mean,
But the same thing, it's always awkward. David Ortiz, who might have zero history against the Oakland, maybe not the Oakland Athletics, but, think of any non-division American League, non-AL East team that...
There aren't a lot of guys they can honor like this, though, left in the game, right? Every year there used to be an Ozzie Smith or a Cal Ripken or
But I guess
Tony
my question is, at what point did David Ortiz become Derek Jeter? I don't think there's ever been the national reverence for him that there was for Jeter, or I'll even throw Mariano Rivera. I mean, this is a guy who has had has been linked to PEDs as far as the trial testing way back when. Now, has never failed a test since then. I want to make that very clear. But Derek Jeter was someone who was not beloved universally, but pretty darn close. He was in that kind of Cal Ripken kind of lexicon. I've never felt that David Ortiz was that guy, other than in Boston. And look, in Boston, I completely understand that. I mean,
Pete Rose is kind of the same way.
He's right there with the greatest figures in Boston sports history you'll find. But
are you debating that he's a Hall of Famer without PEDs? I mean,
no. It's not even so much about it. It's just the national appeal for him. I've never found that he's been in that same kind of category. Like, even they did the thing at the All-Star game in San Diego this summer when they took him out. That fell flat, as opposed to with Jeter when he made his farewell a couple years ago.
Yeah, I wouldn't see him as universally beloved.
Yeah,
I totally agree with that.
Right.
But I would say
that's where these things just get awkward for me. I mean,
okay.
I'm sure there were people in other cities, probably not many, because Cal was also so revered nationally. But it's just that, when you're talking about a division rival, especially when you're in the midst of, let's call this what it was, a collapse of a series. You're hoping they can recover, but you don't know if they're going to. and you're just thinking, well, this guy helped end their division hopes with that big home run off Gausman a couple nights ago. So it's just awkward. I like the phone thing, but I wonder how much of it was he saw the highlight of him crushing the phone in the dugout, and he honestly was a little embarrassed by his behavior. I wonder about that, too, because, you could say what you want about, things that, he's done a lot of great things.
He could have grabbed the mic and just said, hey, that was a crazy thing.
Yeah.
I want to apologize to everyone. Thank you for honoring me. This is fun. And, let's go play a baseball game. You know what I mean? Like, it's not for me to say how you handle it, but I think if he would have had some, sense of humor about it, it would not have come off as, let's just get this over with and move on. You know what I mean? Like, this is a little weird. But anyway, back to the field. Can we do that?
Sure. And one thing I do want to know, Orioles did make a $10,000 donation to, I can't remember.
It was a Dominican organization via North Carolina that helps
children,
youth. Yeah, it helps children.
So that was, the phone was the gag part. That was the, sincere part. So that was good to see. But, back to the field.
Well, maybe not. Do you really want to talk?
I know, right? I'm like, okay.
All right, so, where to go now? Obviously, the Tigers have won, and here they come, and here come the Astros, and where are the Orioles? And I completely put the whammy on them when I booked my flight to Toronto for the wild card game. I don't know how they pick up, dude. I mean, I don't want to say that I'm speechless about this because I'm writing about why the fans aren't coming, and part of that, to me, is, and this is the topic, is that they've gotten the F out of the organization, much like your pal, Vince McMahon. The F, the fun. I mean, for whatever reason, people don't perceive it to be fun to go to an Oriole game, so much fun that they want to plop their 20. It seems like more pain than pleasure because I can't think that it's a $12 or $15 ticket, because if that's the case, the team needs to leave town. Because if there's no money to buy a $12 ticket when the team – so then the question is, well, what's the issue? So I'm writing about the fun factor, and certainly these last couple of games, and I look, I'm not myopic, Luke, okay? If they go out and win 10-1 on Monday night, go out and win 8-6 on, which is the only way they can win, on Tuesday night, I'm not of the mindset that this was fantastic fans night on Thursday night, and there would have been 38,000 down there based on the fact that they were playing for first place. I think it would have helped. I mean, I'm not – I'll go halfway with you and say there might have been some more people down there had this thing gotten competitive during the week. But, boy, even for the people, the last remaining, dare I say, rats on the ship for this season at least, that if the 10,000 that have gone down there each night this week, this is something we haven't witnessed. We've witnessed awful for years and years with no hope, no belief, no nothing. We haven't had one of these Greg Olson uncorking a wild pitch and, Harnish stepping on a nail and, crazy stuff that, Bartman moments, with franchises, because, quite frankly, they haven't been relevant. I mean, we have Benitez, right? I mean, we have Jeffrey Mayer, a generation ago. But these sort of moments of collapse, even the Kansas City thing, there was no one thing, there was everything. In this season, the one thing is going to be this Red Sox series where no one came to the ball games and the Red Sox kicked their ass, and who knows what Ortiz may go on and win another World Series now with a whole different cast of baseball players, which what I would say from his Hall of Fame perspective is what makes them special. But to the Orioles side of this, they need to pick up the pieces here, and they feel like a ship adrift at this point. I want to find some way to believe they're going to go 8-2 the rest of the way here and make themselves really relevant next Saturday and Sunday, so much so that the Oakland Ravens game becomes something we have to have our phones wired to the baseball game next Sunday. I'm trying to find some reason to believe that they're going to get better and not sicker. And that's going to be a tough sell for Buck, right?
I think that, the sell is that you're still only a half game out of the wild card entering this weekend. It's, as much as you can look at what's happened over this homestand, which has been by far their worst homestand of the year. In fact, interestingly enough, with Thursday night's loss, they clinched their third straight non-winning homestand. They hadn't had every single homestand had been a winning one prior to that all year long. It just shows how they've fallen off playing at home. But, they're a half game out entering the weekend. They just came off of a 6-3 road trip, so that gives you some recent memory of, well, we played pretty well on the road there, so we know we play our final 6 on the road. So you draw from that, and you do have some veterans who've been through this before. So, I'm not saying I'm predicting it. I'm not saying it's a great bet at this point. I see what everyone else sees at this point, but from a mathematical standpoint, and you look at some of these other teams, they're not. Not all of them have juggernaut record or juggernaut schedules by any stretch, but these are all teams that have struggled. I mean, let's face it. Let's call a spade a spade. When you're talking about teams fighting for the second wild card right now, these are teams that have a 520 to a 530 winning percentage. They're solid baseball teams. They're nothing more than that. And the Orioles now, via 4 straight losses, 11 games over 500. That's solid over the course of 162 games, but it's certainly nothing special. That's where, if you're the Orioles, you just have to try to strike what's happened over the last week out of your memory. It's not easy.
Well, you got to go feast on some bad pitching because Lord knows you saw enough of good pitching this week.
Yeah. I mean, it's they got to start hitting the ball. Now, especially with the starting pitching, Gosvin's being pushed back. He's got he has a intercostal issue, which is in the back. They're hoping he's going to pitch Tuesday or Wednesday, but we've seen how that goes before. Sometimes they pitch, sometimes they don't. Sometimes when they do pitch, they're not very good. And he's going to be pitching at Rogers Center, where, if you remember, in late July, he had just a horrendous start.
I call it the House of Horrors.
Yeah.
And full seats, of course.
Toronto hasn't, they certainly haven't been special, and they've fallen out of, any realistic shot of winning this division with the way Boston has played over the last week. But, it's just, there's a lot that feels broken right now, and that's the word as I was driving home from Thursday night's game, that's what popped into my head as where the Orioles stand right now.
Okay, a lot feels broken. We'll leave it at that, and let's get on to happy thoughts because I got my Ravens hat on.
Well, there you go.
And I'm flying to Florida this weekend to see an undefeated Baltimore Ravens team travel to winless Jacksonville. This sounds dreamy. I know it's not, and I've talked to these people from Jacksonville all week long. Give me a little primer of what you've seen out of practice last couple days and where we are on the field. Obviously, the Ronnie Stanley thing is good news for anybody out there. Last thing he wants to feel is broken. I saw him in the locker room on Wednesday and talking about he's a guy that goes out and plays, and that's a big part of this. And I think, we saw a very emotional Josh McCown earlier this week, talking about in this league, you got to play. And, this is a big week for the Ravens. It's probably a bigger week for the Jacksonville Jaguars, quite frankly.
Oh, it is. There's no doubt about it. I mean, the Ravens don't need to win this game. Certainly you'd like to win this game because we've talked quite a bit about their first half schedule compared to how much tougher it gets in the second half, on paper anyway. But this is a Jacksonville team that had relatively high expectations entering this season, and lots of talk about Gus Bradley's future. Right now they have quite a few guys who've missed practice this week, quite a few starting players who've missed practice this week. Now, I don't know how, once we see the final injury report, we'll have a better idea of who's sitting, who's playing, but that's a team that's banged up, whereas the Ravens are relatively healthy. I mean, you mentioned Ronnie Stanley. He was a full participant on Thursday. No reason to think he's not going to play. Elvis Dumervil, we'll see. He's been limited, in the early practices this week. He said on Thursday he's hoping to play on Sunday, but this is a guy who has not had much practice time at all. So I'm still, I'm not ready to say I think he's going to play. Certainly haven't heard that. I think they're very hopeful, but as they were getting to the beginning of the weekend, I still think there was some uncertainty there as far as whether he's going to play. And if he does play, probably would think he'll be on a snap count. Maybe give them 10 to 15 pass rushing snaps, some critical moments to try to get after Blake Bortles. But, this is on paper, you see 2-0 versus 0-2, and you say, hey, Ravens have a great opportunity here to start 3-0. And, they do. I mean, they have a very good opportunity here. But I think the key for this game for me is going to be how fast do the Ravens start? Because, certainly if you fall behind anywhere remotely like they did against Cleveland last week, you're not going to like their chances to be able to do anything like that 2 weeks in a row. But I think there's a sense with Jacksonville, considering how desperate they are. And they have talent. They haven't played up to their potential whatsoever.
Well, we keep hearing about Bortles' talent. We keep hearing about these wide receivers.
Yeah, I mean, Allen Robinson's he's put up great numbers already in his career. Alan Hearns caught, I believe it was 10 touchdowns last year. So they have ability, but it hasn't come together for them. Certainly didn't come together in San Diego last week for them. But I think if the Ravens can start fast in this one, knowing it's Jacksonville, knowing that that's not exactly a football hotbed, at least for the NFL anyway. They fall behind early. There's a chance that they could quit. And that it could be one of those games where the Ravens can be in full control if they start slow. Really like they did against certainly against Cleveland, but even Buffalo to a degree. If they have that kind of a performance, early on, then I think. I think this could be a real danger, kind of a trap game for the Ravens in that regard. So, so much talk about the running game. I talked to Mark Trestman about that on Thursday, and a big key is getting an early lead. In this day and age in the NFL, very few teams are running the ball to gain a lead. Teams are running the ball to protect a lead, and that doesn't mean you get a 7-0 lead and you just sit on it, but when you're leading in the second half, and you have an advantage and you've played well to that point offensively, that's typically where you can start to grind the ball and really start using your running game. So that's going to be a key. Certainly that formula did not apply last week in Cleveland. We'll see if it applies against Jacksonville. And keep in mind, this is a Jaguars team that beat the Ravens last year. In 2014, gave them everything they could handle.
Because the officials cheated. Come on, man.
Well, but
I watched the game last year. We was robbed.
Well, the Ravens also had 59 minutes, 59 seconds to put them away before that, as Marshall Yonda noted.
I'm just screaming about it. It
I
helped our draft position. I actually went up to Ryan Mallett and told him the whole story about taking Thomas Dolby to the game last year and how him winning the game screwed our draft up,
Yeah, it did. But even 2 years ago, where the Ravens were a playoff team and Jacksonville was again woeful. Remember, the Ravens gave them, or Jacksonville gave them everything they could handle. And one thing I know Flacco talked about this week, the Ravens have, it's been methodical and slow for them offensively against this Jacksonville team. They've had to grind things out against that defense the last couple years. When they've played, I think that's a dangerous proposition if that happens again on Sunday.
He is Luke Jones, Baltimore Luke, out on Twitter, and I am Nasty at WNST.net. He is Luke at WNST.net. Together we're out covering it all. Luke will be at the ballpark. I'll be in Jacksonville. We'll bring it all together for you on Monday, post-game, streaming live on Facebook, as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel. Also, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, anywhere you go. And, of course, our WNST text service with breaking news that comes directly to your mobile device. You just need to sign up at WNST.net. It's all brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. We will be at Greenmount Station in Hampstead on Wednesday night with Ryan Jensen and Alex Lewis, the interior lineman of the Baltimore Ravens. So we'll be eating some big crab cakes, having some fun, talking some football. They're great guys. We're going to be swabbing for the bone marrow registry for There Goes My Hero. So we'll see you in Hampstead, Carroll County, on Wednesday night at our old stomping grounds, Greenmount Station. Bring your spit. Bring some new people. Let's get them on the registry, save some lives. We had one of our swabbers go to donorship on Monday to save a life, so we're really excited about that. I'm going to be sharing some information about that over the weekend. Swabbing the Ravens on Friday. You'll see that stuff out on the internet if you go to our WNST social media as well. Don't forget, anything you missed here, you can find in the Buy a Toyota Audio Vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn Radio app. We come in crystal clear. It's all brought to you by buyatoyota.com. Last but never least, that morning newspaper hits your email inbox at 7 a.m. each and every morning, and it's powered up by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com. Still $10 a month to get in the best shape of your life. It is Planet Fitness, and get inspired at planetoftriumphs.com as well. Got an inspiring weekend in Florida. Hope to come back 3-0. Hope to come back with some fun stories of palm trees, and I hope that the Orioles don't continue their fade because it's a lot less fun talking about an irrelevant baseball team. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Taos in Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.